Welcome to the Remodeling Reimagined podcast, a podcast that gives you an inside look at the remodeling world from award-winning designers. On this week's pod, Cindy and Jay Cipriani sat down with designer Ken Endt to discuss what really goes into having a great remodeling experience. Without further ado, here is your host, Cindy Cipriani.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another episode of our podcast, Remodeling Reimagined. Today, we're going to be talking about a subject that we hear a lot of people are interested in and are worried about, and that is how do you have a great customer experience when you want to remodel? So not all remodels are alike, and you're probably listening to this because you're at the point where you know you want to do a remodel, you're excited about it. You may have looked online and looked at some beautiful pictures of what your project could be. You may have gone out shopping a little bit, or you may just be starting out and saying, you know, I want to do this and I know I want a new kitchen, a new bathroom, an addition project, but how am I going to have a really good experience? You've probably heard some nightmare stories from friends or relatives or people that you work for that, you know, have remodeled something and it just hasn't gone the way they thought it would. One of the huge things that people worry about is the cost. How much is this going to cost? And how do I know that this is what's going to be the price of this? You know, it's not going to go up during construction. What's going to happen in my house? You know, you're probably feeling a little bit of nervousness or anxiety about that because there's a lot of bits and pieces, and this may be your first remodel. So today we wanted to talk about your customer experience and some common issues and complaints and how to avoid them. One of the things that we've done is had a pre-construction meeting. And this is held a few weeks before your project starts. It's a huge component in putting you at ease and also for having your project run smoothly. Now today we're going to talk about a few things that are on our list that we go over at this pre-construction conference. What's a pre-construction conference? You may never have heard of one. Well, we're going to talk about a few of these things with Jay Cipriani and Ken Endt, who is one of our remodeling designers. And we're just going to talk about who's there, what it's entailed, why it's so important, what are some of the things on the list that really will help you to have this wonderful customer experience. And we'll go into it like one at a time. So you're at the point where you've planned your project and now you may have a start date, but you don't know what the experience is going to be like. And so a couple weeks before, we bring in your project manager, we have your designer there, and we talk about all the different details of your project. That's a pre-construction meeting or conference. It's held at your home, and so it's very important that everyone has the same information and we go through it together so that everyone is on the same page. Now, you may think, wow, that's an idea I never thought of. Or you may think, well, doesn't everyone do that? No, not everyone does. So let's talk a little bit with Jay Cipriani about why he came up with this pre-construction conference and exactly what it does for having a great customer experience. Jay?
Thanks, Cindy. Yes, we came up with this decades ago. We've heard homeowners over the years be talking about the experience that, you know, they've signed a contract, an agreement with the contractor. They've given that contractor a deposit. The contractor said, I'll be back in 2 months to get started, and they don't hear from the contractor for 2 months. And they show up on day one and everybody's confused and they don't know where to go, what they're doing. So we're trying to alleviate all those issues. Showing up on the first day and asking the homeowner while your kitchen's being torn apart, well, where do you want the dumpster? Where can I store materials? How do I address your pets? How do I keep them safe? And how do I lock up at the end of the day? And the homeowner's like, well, I got to get to work. You're asking me all these questions on day one, and I'm confused. I'm a little. I have some anxiety. I'm nervous at this point. So we developed a process where we call it the Preconstruction Conference, where we answer all these questions ahead of time. 2 weeks before the job is supposed to start, we come out with everybody that's going to be working on the project manager, the lead carpenter, whoever designed the project, and we meet with the homeowners. We go over all these details ahead of time. So the day we're supposed to start, everybody shows up and they know what they're supposed to do. They know where to put materials. They know how to make sure the kids, the furniture, the pets are safe, and where to store materials, and putting up a schedule on the wall. So there's lots of things that we go through to make sure that the homeowners feel safe and comfortable. The homeowners get to meet the carpenters get to meet the homeowners, so they don't show up the first day saying, okay, who's on my job site? So
the carpenters and the project manager is there, and Ken, you're one of our designers, so why is it important that the project manager be at the customer's home a few weeks beforehand, and how does that transition go from designer to project manager?
Yes, being a design build firm, we handle all of the planning and design work and then transition into the build, of course. So that pre-construction meeting is that pivot point. It's that transition from one phase into the next. And so it's very important to have your project manager arrive beforehand, get to know the property, and to meet you and your family in order to make that transition as smooth as possible. So they're there, you get to meet them, because this is the person who will be in your home for the next couple of weeks every single day. And he gets to familiarize himself with the property, gets to see the project in person beforehand. And not only, like Jay said, do we start to plan for where will the dumpster go and where can we store materials, but this meeting also allows the homeowner, myself, who've planned all of these designs, now have a conversation with your project manager so that they feel very comfortable with all of the details and the construction needs of the project. So we get to review this all together, and that also gives the homeowner a great peace of mind, because now they have the assurance that their project manager understands everything about the job too. So we go over the existing site conditions. We talk about the major changes that are going to be happening, if that means that we're moving walls or significant changes in plumbing or electric. And we talk about then the after and all of the pieces that will be a part of that. So our project manager, who's going to be there and doing the install and working with other trades, has all of the information that we've had building up to this.
Thanks, Ken. That is really important, because the project manager hasn't been with the customer, right, or with you throughout this whole process. So there's probably been a lot of conversations that have gone back and forth between the homeowner and yourself, maybe little details, and we know everything is in our agreement that is very detailed, but having those conversations really is going to help a smooth transition. So Jay, maybe you could tell us, we go over our agreement in detail. What does that exactly mean, that the homeowner has a detailed agreement and that it is actually gone over with the project manager ahead of time?
Right, during the design process, as you well know, that the designer, such as Ken, would make up a great design. He would help them pick out the brand name, model number, color, size, quantity for everything. And all that information gets put into an agreement or a contract. And that needs to be relayed or handed over to the lead carpenter, project manager of the project. And we like to make sure that the lead carpenter doesn't have any questions about what's going to be done in the house, what's going to be installed in the house. So reviewing every single line item that's in the agreement with the lead carpenter or project manager is extremely important, because we want them to know the day they're starting exactly what they're doing. They're not going to show up the first day saying, well, you know, what am I building today? So it's extremely important to make sure that all that information is transferred over to the project manager of the project, to make sure that the bill goes correctly.
Yeah, you know, it's not a common thing for things during the project to go awry because the customer thought they were getting one thing and the builder comes in and is putting something else in. And that's because there's not that detail. I know this happens because my best friend is moving and she lives in another state and she wanted a new kitchen. So she was very excited and she told me that she went to a cabinet place and had her design. And then I asked her if she would forward me the agreement. And the agreement said kitchen, cabinets, countertops, one sink, one faucet, you know, and I was like, well, what are you getting? And she said, oh, I picked out a cabinet, I picked out a countertop, you know. I said, well, do you know what sink you're getting? Do you know what faucet you're getting? Do you know how many square feet of countertop is calculated in here? Do you know what the material is? Do you know the make and model number of the cabinetry? And she was like, no, I don't know any of that. So can you imagine somebody just showing up at your house and they're going to put in a sink, a kitchen sink? Well, maybe that's not the kitchen sink that you want. So as a designer, Ken, how much time and effort has gone into choices, and why is it so important that they are detailed into that agreement?
Absolutely. There are so many details about every aspect of a kitchen, for example. So if somebody likes an apron front sink, you need to have the right size to fit in the sink base in order to accommodate that front face of your apron front sink. So there are specific size sinks for different sink bases, and that all needs to be determined ahead of time. So imagine that you think you're going to get a sink that's going to fill up the width of that cabinet perfectly and in its entirety, and then you come home from an install or after a day where they're doing some installation, and you have this tiny little sink that they just put in the base because it was more convenient for them to do it that way. And now you have a tiny sink. So as a designer, we know what the right pairings are, and then we specify that. So you are guaranteed to know the dimensions of all of the items that you're getting, so that you're not shocked if somebody makes a switch on you.
Yeah, the other thing that is really important is in the agreement to not only have make and model number, but a picture of what you're getting. And that's important because the project manager hasn't shopped with us. And they don't know every model number and every sink or faucet or what they look like. So it makes it really easy for them when things are delivered to the job site, if they can look at a picture and they say, yes, this is exactly what was chosen and this is what I'm supposed to be installing. And if they get something that's different, go ahead, Ken.
I was going to say, and that's one of my responsibilities after we make all of these selections together, to put those into your agreement that has the make, model, size, and finish, but also the pictures too. So it's always very reassuring that you know exactly what you're getting and it matches up. If you were ever curious before our start date, I just want to take a look at some of the things that I've selected. We put in the pictures of tile that you're using, and you think to yourself, I just love the look of it. I want to check it out again. So you have the ability to look at that in your agreement. And as you noted, the project manager gets to, it's an extra layer of confirmation that we have the right products on site. And it's one of my responsibilities to collect all of that. And I'm really happy to do it because I understand how reassuring it can be. And it also guarantees that the right things are going to go in.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but when I pick something out when it has a lot of detail, sometimes I second guess myself. And I'll wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and be like, oh my goodness, did I really like that? You know, what did that look like again? There were so many choices. I forget which one I chose. And if you have an agreement with pictures in it, you could just open that up, take a look at that at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, yes, okay, I made the right decision. I can go back to sleep now, and
Right.
You don't have to worry about it. That's the same thing with, during the project. There's going to be things that you're going to worry about, and your project manager has probably already worked them out. So another thing that we do at the pre-construction is we talk about the safety of your home. When we're doing demolition, we have walls opened up, you're going to have exposed wiring, your floor may be taken up, you may have pets and children in your home. People get curious, they want to go in past the dust protection and see what's going on in there. So safety is really important, and this is one of the things that we talk about at our pre-construction meeting to make sure that everyone is safe during your project. So Jay, maybe you could tell us a few things that we go over to make sure that everyone is on the same page with safety.
Yeah, that's our primary responsibility, is to keep the homeowners safe during the remodeling project. And you mentioned we do some great dust protection, and that usually entails us building dust walls where we literally put up some temporary 2x4 walls with plastic on that wall to keep the dust out. And that plastic is also used to keep pets and keep the children out of the work area. So the dust walls work great for that. It's a multi-purpose system. Usually we have a door that allows the homeowner to come in and out of the workspace at night to be able to visualize what was completed that day. There's times when we put locks on those doors so small children can't get into the work area. So very, very important that we make sure that the family members and the pets and neighbors and visiting family are safe during the construction project.
Yes, and part of that too is communication. It's very important to be able to communicate with the people that are there at your house so that if you have a question or a concern, that everyone is on the same page. It's very important that your kids are able to communicate also with them. I know with some of the younger ones, I was just visiting a job site a couple weeks ago, and they had a little 4-year-old little boy, and he came out with his tool belt on, with his little plastic hammer, and because I don't know if Bob the Builder is still on. That used to be a big thing, but they're looking at the guys that we send to the house, and the trades are a great occupation, and what a great thing for these kids to be able to see someone in their home who's transforming their house, and they get very attached to them. So our guys are all family men. They have pets and children themselves, and they know how to communicate not just with you, but with the children, with the pets, so that everybody remains safe. And the communication also goes down to, how are we going to communicate with you? Some people prefer texts, or they all have iPads so they can take pictures during the day if you're at work. And if they have a question, they could send you a picture and say, hey, is this exactly where you want that outlet? Is this exactly where you want that light fixture? Communication is so important. So some people, like I said, use text messages all the time, but some people say, no, I'm at work, I can't do that. So how are we going to communicate with you during the day? How are we going to communicate to you at night? Let's say you get home at 8 o'clock at night and you see something and you say, oh, I need to tell, my project manager this. Well, how is the best way to communicate with him? We go over all of those details so that, again, you have this great customer experience and you don't feel like you don't have an opportunity to say what you really want to convey. Jay, do you have any thoughts on communication?
Yeah, communication is key. We always say there's no such thing as a dumb question. So, we love when the owners of the home are around, where we can say good morning in the morning and lay out what we're going to be accomplishing that day. Or we love when they're home in the evening, when we can say good night. This is what we accomplished. We'll be back tomorrow to do this, that, or the other thing. And they ask if you have any questions or concerns. So communication is key, and that open dialogue is very important to the success of a project.
And another part of communication is this isn't just your project. I know that sounds kind of weird, but you probably have neighbors. So whether you're in a condominium and you have a downstairs neighbor or neighbors next door, even if you're in a single family home, you probably have driveways and common sidewalks, things like that. When they see that a project is being done at your house, a lot of times the neighbors get a little bit concerned. So how does communication with you help your neighbors, Ken?
It's really important. You might have a neighbor who is really sensitive to noise. They might work from home. They might have young kids that, could be disturbed by construction activity. And so finding that out ahead of time is something that we do at the pre-construction meeting. We say, well, we're going to have a couple work vans. Do you have any neighbors that might be upset by us parking in the street? And then this way we can accommodate that ahead of time. We certainly want to keep your whole neighborhood as happy as you're going to be through the experience. So we work all of those things out.
Yeah, even work hours are so important, because I've heard people say, we didn't know when they were going to show up. Sometimes they were there in my house until 9 o'clock at night. We wanted to go to bed. We're thinking people are going to show up at 7 in the morning and nobody showed up until 11. Like, all of those things are really frustrating when you're living through a remodel. So one of the things that we talk about at the pre-construction meeting is our hours that we're going to be at your house. And like Ken said, any type of noise issues. If you're working from home now, how are you going to do your work while we're hammering or doing construction? And also, how are you going to live in your house during maybe not having a kitchen or having your bathroom renovated? We do a lot of homes where there only has one bathroom. So we need to figure out how you can still have those facilities while we're doing the renovation. So what are some of the things we do to accommodate that, Jay?
Well, often if it is a bathroom, a single bathroom in the house, that we set it up, let's say we're gutting the bathroom down to the studs and we're starting from scratch. We certainly set up the homeowner so that they could use the kitchen sink to brush their teeth. We will make arrangements to make sure that they have a toilet at the end of the day, so that they can use that at night up into the morning. If we need to pull that during the day to put down the floor, we can certainly get it back in place at the end of the day. Showering is very important, so a lot of times we'll accommodate them by setting up a temporary shower. That could be in the bathroom that we're actually working in, or sometimes we've set them up in the basement so that a homeowner can go downstairs in the basement, and we'll have a fiberglass shower stall with a curtain on it. So we go to extreme lengths to make sure that the customer and the homeowner is very comfortable during the remodeling project.
Jay, that reminds me of a bathroom remodeling that we did. It was exactly that scenario where there was just the one bathroom in the house, and we were talking about different things that we could do to set them up, the shower in the basement. But the wife looked at me, she got very serious and said, "But there's one thing that I will not do, And she said, that's take care of business in a coffee can. So I said, don't worry, we will set up the toilet each day that we need to. She said, are you sure? I said, yes, if that's what it takes, we're going to reinstall the toilet every evening so that you can do what you need to do in your own privacy and comfort. She was fine with the shower. She was fine with brushing her teeth. But the idea of a coffee can, boy, that was just not going to work. So we accommodated her.
Well, each of our job sites has a spotted pot on it just for our workers. Years ago we said, we don't want any of our workers to have to go into a homeowner's house to use the facilities. So, we've always had a spotted pot. So, worst case scenario, a homeowner could use the spotted pot that's in the side
They're
yard.
nice ones too.
Yes, they have the hand sanitizer and the sink inside, so they are nice. But yes, we do go to great extremes to make sure the homeowner's comfortable during the project. That's one of the things we review in the pre-construction conference is how are we going to set them up. When we do kitchens, sometimes we'll set up a temporary electric stove, or we'll move the refrigerator into the family room or out into the garage, and move the kitchen table out into the garage or down into the basement. So we allow them to be able to do some minimal cooking. Certainly having the microwave there is handy and important. So we talk about all these different things 2 weeks before the project starts so that we can discuss it, we can make arrangements. If we have to make a change, we have 2 weeks to think about it and to get it reorganized before we actually start swinging a hammer.
Yeah, oftentimes this is the first time that you'll be living without a kitchen if you're doing that, and that's a main hub of your house. So many times homeowners don't even think about, what are we going to do during that 4 to 6 weeks when we don't have a kitchen? So we set up a temporary kitchen, maybe in your dining room, and we encourage people to use their crock pots or outside grills. We know that this is an expense of eating out, during that time that a lot of people don't think about when they're renovating. So if we can minimize that by setting something up that's temporary, you can get up and have an area where your coffee pot is, and you have your refrigerator, you can still make your lunches, you can cook something for dinner. So, and I've had people say to me, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm looking forward to eating out for 6 weeks. But whatever it is, we talk about how they're going to be living during that time so that they're prepared and that we're prepared. And oftentimes people are very surprised at that at the pre-construction conference because it's something that they just didn't think about. We also talked to them about unloading all of their cabinets and maybe putting them in plastic containers or something where they have access to plates and cups and things that they need during that time. And a sink, if the sink is disconnected for a few weeks, where are they going to wash a few dishes, or where are they going to get water on the downstairs? So all of those things need to be talked about ahead of time. And this is really what's going to result in a great customer experience for you. Even our material storage. Sometimes people don't have a garage area where they can store things. So what are some of the things that we do to accommodate that, Ken?
Well, when we're bringing in materials, say, for example, if it is hardwood flooring, before it gets installed, it needs to acclimate into the environment so that it has a stable temperature and humidity. So we work out ahead of time where we'll be storing some of the items that'll be part of your build. And then we do surface protection in where we'll be storing those items so that your carpet or the area that's your family room everything is properly stacked and all of the surfaces around it are taken care of and protected.
Yes, and I'm sure you've seen by now that there is a lot to consider before a contractor comes on that first day to start your project. These may be things that you haven't thought of before. Like I said, we have 24 items on our list that we go over, and so far we've only talked about 7 of them. But one more that we'll talk about, and then we'll end this podcast, is a very important piece, and that is, how are you paying for your project? So you may have an estimate from someone, you may have a quote. It depends on the contractor as to how much money they want down as a down payment. How do most people handle that, Jay?
Well, that's already been set up, and that's in their agreement, so that's been reviewed with the homeowners, with the designer, but it hasn't been reviewed with the project managers. So we talk about that at the Preconstruction Conference, that we have the schedule. At the end of each week, the project manager is going to be giving a homeowner a invoice for the things that were expected to be completed that week, and if the homeowner approves all of those items, they'll write out a check for those items. And we talk to the homeowners about that. You can give the check to our project manager, and he actually will take a picture of that check and hand you the check back. We can do remote deposits on his iPad. So we talk about that process. We make sure that the homeowner feels safe and comfortable making those progress payments that are set up in the agreement. So we always want to make sure that the homeowner feels safe and comfortable with the funds for the project. We always say whoever has control of the funds has the power. So that's one of the reasons why we don't take a large deposit. We make sure that the homeowner is paying for things as they approve them and as they are completed. So we review that again at the Pre-Construction Conference, and we just remind the homeowner that the project manager will be getting you a progress payment reminder on like a Wednesday. Hey, by Friday I should have these things done, and if you approve them, you can write out a check, and I'll take a picture of that check and deposit it for you and hand you the check back.
Yeah, we find that this is something very unique, and not a lot of contractors do it, but we have a schedule that hangs in your house, and it shows exactly what's going to be accomplished during those weeks. And then the progress payments are made as kind of a point in time as to when these things would happen. It's not like an exact of what that one item would represent, but it's more like a point in time. And it makes people feel really comfortable that they can walk into the space and they see what they're actually paying for and that they've approved it, all the way down to the end of the project when we have a quality process where we come in and make sure that everything is finished before you make your final payment. I know that big box stores in the past have had installation programs. Some of them had required people to pay for the entire project up front. I mean, I just can't even imagine that, but if you're having a kitchen done and you write out a check for the entire project and just hand it over. Well, those processes those programs have actually gone by the wayside because they didn't work. There was too much that went wrong. There was too much that wasn't communicated. The detail wasn't there. The homeowner had no idea who the contractors were that were going to show up at their house. And oftentimes the contractors that were used by the big box stores were contractors that weren't busy. And they weren't busy maybe for a reason. So they would come in and there was all kinds of confusion. There were lawsuits that entailed. And so it didn't work. We want to make sure that whoever your contractor is this detail oriented. Whether you go with us or whether you go with someone else, you may not live in our area, and so you want to be looking for a contractor that has this much detail in every aspect of your job. Because the more you do up front, the more smoothly it'll go and the better customer experience that you'll have. Any final thoughts, Ken?
No, I think you summed it up really great. It's all about planning from the very beginning. The more planning you do, there's that old saying, you're setting yourself up for success. And that pre-construction meeting, I like to call it a kickoff party, because it should be fun too. We get to review all of the details, but that is really, the next step in setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, and that's true. You do want this to be fun. It's a big investment in your home, and it's a place and a space where you're going to be able to enjoy for years. And so you want it to come out exactly the way you like it. Every time you walk into that space, that you're happy. I know I've had clients in the past who said to me, maybe I'll compromise, I'll cut back, I won't get this or that I really wanted. And I say to them, no, please don't do that. Please don't do that, because every time you walk in the space, you're going to wish that you had, that one expensive pull-out in the kitchen or something, like that one thing. You're going to regret not doing it. So we would rather have you, wait a little bit, save up a little bit, or maybe we can walk you through other areas where you could save so that you could have those items, and because we want you to be thrilled every time you walk into that space. And Jay, do you have any further comments?
No, I think you and Ken covered a lot of information that I think will be extremely benefit or useful rather, for homeowners thinking about a remodeling project.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We want to be bringing you subjects that are interesting and also that are informative and educational for you, because we know that this industry is complex, and having a home is just such an honor, and we want you to have a beautiful home. And we also want you to remodel it in the best way possible and have the best customer experience so that you can tell your friends and neighbors that it was just a thrill. So thank you for tuning in to Remodeling Reimagined, and tune back next time for our next subject in our podcast.
Once again, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And if you're looking to start a remodeling project, you can learn more about our design process at Cipriani Remodeling Solutions.com, and you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.